Welcome to Stand Up and Speak. My name is David Ahearn, and before we even get started, I want to congratulate you on saying your very first yes. What you've done is you said, you know what, I may have some fear around public speaking, but I don't care. I am going to face my fear, and I'm going to become a public speaker. A lot of people might ask why you would want to do that. Here's the thing about becoming a really, really solid public speaker. It's going to enhance your communication skills. You're going to be able to communicate the messages and the thoughts that you have, and you're going to be able to convey them to large audiences. What's that going to do? It's going to increase your confidence. You're going to become more confident, and that confidence is the very thing that's going to lead you to career advancement, because the more confident you get, the more people around you start to notice you, and that's when you start elevating your career. Once you've done that, you then are in a position where you can use your influence and your persuasion to guide people and help them and share all the things that you've learned. And then finally, that opens you up to networking opportunities. And this is when you start to meet people who are more successful than you, because the old adage is when you hang out with more successful people, they actually elevate you to their level. If you hang out with people who are less successful than you, they tend to pull you down. So the great thing about becoming a public speaker is you open up all of those 5 very important pathways to lead you to becoming more successful. We're going to talk a lot in this course about the improvisational technique called yes and we will get into that much later in the course, but I do want to say you said your very first yes, and this is what's going to lead you down the path to becoming a better human being. Honestly, you're going to learn to share your messages with the world, and by doing that, you're going to become an influence with the people around you. As I said, my name is David Ahearn. Many of you may ask, why are you teaching this course? And I'm going to tell you why. My background is in comedy for more than 30 years. I did a combination of stand-up comedy and improvisational comedy. I've done more than 6,000 shows. And I was in a group called 4 Day Weekend for more than 23 years, where I founded it with my good friends. And we had the great pleasure of performing all over the world. We performed for 2 presidents. We actually did a section of this a keynote address called Yes And. We did it for Congress. And I have a little story to tell you. When we did this keynote for Congress, Congress's approval rating was at 11%. That's how bad it was. It was 11%. And we went out to Congress, we taught them yes and you know what happened? Their approval rating went up to 13%. So you're welcome, America. We helped fix it. So my background has always been in comedy, and that's how I started out. And a little background of how I started doing stand-up. When I was 16 years old, I remember I always dreamed of being a stand-up comedian. That was kind of my goal in life. But I was living in Iowa at the time, and I have to be honest with you, not a lot of comedians came out of Iowa. And I didn't know how I was going to, follow my dreams and pursue my passion. And I remember I was 16 years old, and I said to my father, we were driving in this Oldsmobile one time. I was in the front seat, and he was driving. And I thought, this is the moment when I want to tell my dad about what I want to do with my life, because I knew I wasn't going to follow a traditional path. And I knew at some point I'm going to have to let my father know, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. So we're driving, and I remember the car was very quiet at the time. And I was like, Dad, I wanted to tell you what I think I want to do with my life. And he kind of looked over at me in that fatherly way, looking at a 16-year-old kid going, oh, you're going to tell me what you're going to do with your life? Well, sure, what is it? I go, I want to be a comedian. Now, I have to give my dad great credit, because when I told him this, he didn't say, that's a stupid idea, that's crazy, you can't do it. He did look at me and say, but you don't even know anyone in Hollywood, which I didn't know that was a thing. You had to know somebody in Hollywood to get into stand-up. But I said, well, this is what I want to do. And to my dad's great credit, he said to me, well, if you're going to become a comedian, that's cool, but think about becoming a writer also, because if for some reason you don't make it in comedy, you can always fall back on writing, which I always found very interesting, because if writing is your fallback career, you probably really don't have much of a fallback career. So I remember that day when I told my father that, and a couple more years passed, and I got to be about 19 years old, and I remember I was really directionless, to say the least. In fact, my father even came to me at one point and he said, you're kind of floundering around in life, and you got to figure out what your direction in life is going to be. And very shortly after that, My brother, who's living in Texas, he just called me and he said, hey, you remember a long time ago when you told me you wanted to be a comedian? Well, he goes, I tell you what, I found out from a friend that there is a open mic night here in Dallas, and you can come down here, you can get a job, and you can start doing open mic nights at night. And this was the very first chance that I thought, I can do this. And was I terrified? Oh, absolutely. Was I terrified of speaking in front of people? No question about it. It horrified me to think about standing in front of a group of people and actually trying to tell jokes and get laughs. But the secret to all of this is that my passion for wanting to do it was more powerful than my fear. And what I learned is if your passion is more powerful than your fear, you're going to pursue your passion. If your fear is more powerful than your passion, you're always going to give in to your fear. Well, my passion was such that I wanted more than anything to do comedy. So I flew down to Texas. It was January 9th, 1989 when I arrived here. And I got to Texas. And I remember my brother said two things: get a job, sign up to go do your open mic night. Well, I got a job. But then I waited because I was very, very worried about this first performance until finally my brother said, look, you came down here. You came down to pursue your dream. Just go on stage and find out if you can do it. So I called the club, signed up, got my name on the list. And for some reason, which even the club owner to this day can't explain, she put me up on a Saturday night, which was the premier night to go up in this club because that's the night when everyone came out. And it just so happened I was a beginner. And my brother invited every single friend he had to the performance. He had about 60, 70 friends there. And that night, I got to the club. The club is packed. There's probably 150 people in the room. And my name was way down on the list because they always put the beginners at the end because they want, the really, really good comedians to get the crowd when they're in their prime. And I remember I was getting closer to my name on the list, and I was standing back in the back of the room. This was a pizza joint. This was not really a comedy club. It was a pizza joint that doubled as a comedy club on the weekends. And I was standing in the back, and my brother was standing back there with me. And he said to me, he goes, you're going to do great. And I knew he's just being supportive. I'm probably not going to do great. And I was absolutely horrified. I was sweating. I was shaking. All the things that probably fears, all the fears that you probably think of when you speak in front of the public were going through my head at that time. And in that moment, they announced my name. And I walked up on stage, and I remember looking out at the audience, and I thought, man, am I out of place. And the 3 minutes that I had prepared of all the material that I had, poof, right out of my mind. I couldn't remember any of it. And I'm standing there, and I remember looking back at this audience, and it couldn't have went more poorly. I bombed. It was terrible. But you know what? I was hooked because there was something about my passion that said, you know what? I didn't succeed this time, but I'm going to next time. I'm going to keep going. And what I did was I kept going up night after night after night. This club was open 4 nights a week, and I would tell the club owner I will go up as many times as I possibly can until I get good. And I did. I went up week after week after week until finally I started getting some gigs around town. Not big ones, make $25 to go up and do 15 minutes of comedy at a bar where you had to dodge beer bottles or anything that they have to throw at you. And slowly I began developing a career. And then I came to a point in my life where I had a really good, solid group of friends who were also doing stand-up, but they were also doing improvisation at the time. And at this time, I had a real dear friend of mine who said, I want you to join us. We're going to do a comedy show. It's going to be an improvisational comedy show. We're going to call it 4-Day Weekend, which was the name of our show. We want you to be a part of it. Well, I didn't want to do improv. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in doing stand-up. And I said, no, I don't want to do it, which is really funny because the whole basis of improvisation is you base your entire performance on the theory and the philosophy of yes and. You say yes to ideas. You build upon those ideas to make them better. Well, my first introduction into improvisation, I said, no, I don't want to do that. Well, my friend was very persistent, and he told me, look, we don't have enough people to be in the headshot. we really need to have like 5 or 6 people. We only have 4 right now. Is there any way you can just be in the headshot and then that way you can just go on your way after that? And I was like, okay. So I went and took the headshot. I'm now in this group photo. And I remember February 27th, 1997 was the first night of the show. And I called my friend about a week before and I said, hey man, when's your show start? And he said, February 27th, 1997. He didn't say 1997 because that was the year we're already in. And generally you don't say 1997 when you're in the year 1997. But I said, you know what? I'm thinking about coming out and seeing the show. I want to see what you guys have to do. And he goes, well, you better. You're in it. I go, in it? What are you talking about? He goes, you're in the show. I go, I'm not in the show. He goes, well, you're in the headshot. You got to be in the show. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Well, on the night of the big show, I met my friend. We sat down. We had a beer. And he explained the format of this show. And he wanted me to host and be the host while everyone else improvised. And that was my introduction into 4-Day Weekend and the philosophy of yes and. Even though I said no the very first time, eventually I got to yes. This is going to be one of the foundations that we talk about throughout this course. We are going to use the tenets and philosophies of improvisation to build your confidence as a speaker. And there's a couple of principles that we always use in improvisation. And they kind of go like this. And we're going to get into this into much greater detail later in the course. But we're happy, friendly people that know and like each other and have a shared history together. Now, what does that mean? We're here to celebrate each other. We're here to treat each other as artists and poets. We're here to make each other look good. And my job is to make you look good. And your job is to make me look good. And if we both look good, we look good together. Because in improvisation, we move from the place of always thinking about me, where we're always in this state of ego. We move to we go. Where we go together is far better than where we go individually. So we go from ego to we go. Also in improvisation, we strike the word no from our vocabulary and we replace it with this technique called yes and, where we say yes to ideas and we build upon them. And we also need to really remember that in improvisation, there are no wrong ideas. There are only higher and lower percentage choices. Now, why do we say that in improvisation? Because we are human beings, and from time to time, we will make a low percentage choice. It's not because we're being malicious or we're trying to intentionally, screw people up. We're just here to, when we realize that somebody makes a low percentage choice, it's our job to yes and find that out-of-the-box idea. So we're going to go into this much greater detail later in the course. But in this particular course, we're also going to start talking about what makes for a great communicator. And in my book, Listen, Laugh, Connect, which I have provided a PDF for you, and you can download that right down there. You can click on that. We're going to talk about 4 tenets that make for a great conversationalist, improviser, speaker. And they're this: we listen. We listen very well. We listen to what people are saying. And then 2, we build on the pertinent information of what they're saying or the topic of discussion. We never try to change it. We just try to build upon it. 3, our next job is to elevate conversations with positivity, to bring out the very best in others. And finally, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to find ways to bring humor to your talks and conversations to help you be a better speaker. Now, in this course, we have designed it in the way where we have video lessons where I'm going to come to you in modules and we're going to break down everything from speech structure to things like how we use yes and, how we can use the breath to help reduce anxiety and things like that. So those video components will be here. We're also going to use the book Listen, Laugh, Connect. As I said, we have a PDF down there. You can constantly reference that. It's there for you to use whenever you want. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce 21 days of saying yes. This is a journal that is going to guide you through saying yes to get you in the framework of saying yes to things that you might normally say no to. Why do we do that? Because so often in our lives, we say the word no and we stop progress. By you saying yes to this course, you have now opened up the ability to manifest a reality that is yet to exist in your life. That's the importance of saying yes. And we're really going to bore down in this course to get to that. Now, before we go further, here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull out a Post-it note or an index card or anything that you can keep close to you. And I want you to write, why do you want to become a better speaker? What is your reason? Think about all the reasons why you considered pulling the trigger on this course, but you didn't know, and then you finally say yes. I want you to write that on a note. I want you to keep that note right close to you because we will be referencing it. So on your note, it could be anything. It could be to inspire others. It could be to become a better thought leader. It could be to educate, inform. It could be to build a professional network or to build confidence. It could be you want to be a better communicator with your family, and this public speaking course can help you do that. Whatever your reason is, write that on your note. That is going to be your why. I am excited to have you join me on this course. I'm so thrilled and so honored that you're putting confidence in me to help you become a better public speaker. The world is waiting for you to share your gifts. Go make it happen.